Thanks for joining, guys. Just like the last session, by the way, we've got roving microphones, so if anyone does have any questions, put your hand up and fire the questions out to the guys here. So thanks for joining us. Welcome on stage. Gary, I'm going to start with you, first of all. So can you, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about Zuto?
Hi, yeah, I'm Gary. I'm the CTO at Zuto. So I guess my role's really focused on, we fondly call everyone that works for Zuto a Zutonite. So a lot of my role's kind of looking at the Zutonite customer process enablement. So it's making sure that we're a tech company, making sure that we're using technology in the right way to build those great experiences. Zuto itself, so our mission is to transform the car finance experience with simplicity and integrity. And we think that the way that people buy vehicles, so the way that you're going out to buy a car, I don't know if anyone here has bought a car. Hopefully you've probably all been through that experience, but it's ripe for disruption. And actually we think that we can build the technology and those experiences the right way, following our values to really change the way that people go about doing that.
Brilliant. And so you guys very much are a developer-centric company. You've got that build mentality. You've got a Twilio platform in your contact center, and I think that sort of serves a lot of your, different experiences. How do you channel and focus your developer resources to build the right experiences?
Yeah, good question. I think I'll start by, I'm going to reference Gordon Ramsay to start with. Probably not what you're expecting, but I'm going to get the show wrong. I think it's called the F word. And it might be the F word, because he swears a lot, doesn't he?
He does.
So he goes into restaurants, and there is a common theme. Like, all of the really poor restaurants had these massive menus, and they just couldn't do all of the dishes really well. So you say, look, basically, shorten the menu down, get to about 3 things and do that really well. So internally, we have things called missions, and these become our strategic pillars for things we're going to be looking at. And we use data. So data is at the core of everything we do. So whether that is quantitative, qualitative data, this powers or informs what missions we're going to look at. And we try to make sure that we do not have more than 3 missions. Mm-hmm. We're about 400 Zutonites in size, and we make sure that actually sometimes you can get a bit tempted to do quite a lot. So make sure that the data is really informing 3 or 4 core things that we look at. Those core things should be at the core of what we do, which is car finance. If it starts to veer from that, it's not really what we should be looking at. So of those missions, one of the missions that's really important to us is actually empowering our car buying experts. So people that work in our contact center, they're not only Zutonites, they have the sub tag of being car buying experts as well. So we want to make sure that, of that mission, that's where we're going to put our developer resource and make sure that we build the right experience. So it was interesting earlier hearing about customers and who are your customers. I'm thinking about Zutonites as well as our customers. So we'll have UX processes. So actually watching and looking what our car buying experts will be doing on the floor, looking at some of the toil that they'll be doing. So what's meaningful to us and what's meaning actually to our customers outside Zuto, it's probably not talking about finance and APRs and all of that stuff. It's actually talking about the car that you want to buy. That's the exciting thing. So looking at the toil. So what are the things that get in the way of us having those meaningful conversations, whether that is via a kind of web chat, whether it is via voice. And that's what we want to look at. We want to automate away that toil, make sure that our car buying experts are in the best possible position to serve their customers as well.
And that's a really interesting point, because when we spoke briefly before this, the way that you approach design, most organizations focus their design and user interface expertise on the customer-facing journey. But I think what you're saying you guys do is look at that for the internal employees as well. Yeah,
definitely. And there's an ongoing debate about the process and the tools and kind of which one comes first. And so we looked at, when we was embarking on this mission, should we use something like a Salesforce, something like a HubSpot? And actually we said, okay, well, first off, let's understand what do we want to achieve. And again, thinking about a day in the life of the car buying experts, let's either, we actually get so that the engineers, the product owners, they sit and shadow people working. A little bit difficult with everyone being remote. Maybe we'll pop round to their house and say, hey, how's it going? Right, I'm going to sit and watch you work today in your garden. We still do that. So it's watching what are their processes, and then working out holistically what should be the process and actually what's going to be really disruptive. So because what we also don't want to do when we're thinking about how we're going to solve this problem is do lots of heavy lifting, build out something that's already available. So kind of looking at the market, seeing what the tools out there can do, but actually having our process nailed down before we did that. So when we're looking at these tools, it's actually, this is the problem we want to solve for our car buying experts. This is the problem we're trying to solve for our external customers. And actually, if we got a tool in, we're going to start having to adapt our processes and what we think the perfect journey looks like. So we wanted to control that full real estate that our car buying experts are looking at. And we wanted to make sure that the process that we wanted to achieve, we can achieve with our tooling, and that we can automate out all of that toil and make sure that actually what a car buying expert does is actually have those meaningful conversations.
So you're moving towards that utopian unified desktop that everyone's looking for to
That's
single pane of glass.
That single pane of glass, that's what we're trying to achieve.
Brilliant, thanks. I'm going to turn to you, Jen, if that's okay now. So first of all, tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about DHL. We've all heard of DHL, but...
Yeah, so I'm Jen Sharp, Contact Centre Director for DHL. So I don't know if everybody knows DHL or DHL Express specifically, but we can ship anything from granola, Gucci handbags to giraffes, anywhere in the world, quicker than anybody else. And I like to believe also offer the best customer experience with whatever they need within country. So I'm really passionate about DHL. It's a company I chose to work for only a couple of years ago, and I actually started in the commercial arena, and that's my background. So CX is so new to me. So I said to Stuart when he asked me to do this, I was like, you do know I don't know anything about CX. But it's been a really interesting transition going from the commercial arena where you can motivate people with money and big events and get them on nice courses to the CS world. And it's really, really different. And the challenges we have are sometimes our benefits can be sometimes our downfalls. So one thing we always commit to our customers that we answer 90% of our calls within 10 seconds across the globe. So we are in 220 countries or territories across the globe, and whatever country you're in, you call within that country to a certain extent, and we will answer the phone within 10 seconds. There's been a major transition, as you all have experienced yourself, to actually people don't want to call us, right? And I understand that. I don't want to call anybody either. So, the challenge is moving all that experience that we have from people answering the phones to other channels like web chat or Twitter, while still retaining that quality experience. And, DHL's tagline is excellence simply delivered. And I want to be responsible to make sure, however customers interact with us, that they feel that. The challenge I've had is how do we get our employees to feel that? How do we get employees to be passionate about their KPIs, which is really challenging. And for me, I've had to really change my tack from motivating salespeople to motivating customer experience or customer service people as well. So that for me is a big challenge.
Yeah.
And again, trying to do that while they're working remotely or from the office as well.
Yeah, sure. We've worked with DHL for many years now, and you've always had such a long tenure of people. Lots of people that I've come across that work at DHL have worked there for many, many years. And we talked about recruitment earlier on. How are you finding the whole process of bringing new people in now and sort of motivating them, as you talked about?
I think, we've learnt lots of lessons over the last 2 years of attracting people. I think, if I'm really honest, there was sometimes an element of arrogance that, we're one of the number one employers. You should want to work for us. And actually, some people were like, no, we don't want to work for you. And it's like, okay, we need to change our tact. But one of the challenges we have, again, which is also a benefit, is that our average length of service in the UK is 25 years.
Wow.
So the people who work in, it doesn't matter what department within DHL, they've never experienced the challenges that we've experienced in a couple of years, and it's taken us a while to adapt and change. But we have to be more flexible, we have to be more attractive, and it isn't about just offering more money, it's offering that whole experience that they can come in and whatever type of job they want to do, whether it's work part-time, whether it's just to stay in a job for 10 years, or whether they want to progress, there is a place for them at DHL. Mm-hmm. And, we need that to come across when we're attracting the right people.
Mm. And you mentioned as well your service goal of 90%, 10 seconds, get the call answered in 3 rings. I know that that's a big global KPI for you. How do you, get the right balance then between digital and automation and that human contact at DHL?
Yeah. I'll be honest, we don't.
Right.
We don't always get it right.
Okay.
We're trying, and it's a constant learning curve. I can't tell you how many conference calls I have about it all the time.
Yeah.
It's a constant learning curve, and the challenge we have when we're forecasting not only how many contacts we're going to get per day, which ranges from 6 to 8,000 contacts a day, how they're going to contact us as well. We can't go on last year's data, we can't go on 2 years' data, and 3-year-old, it doesn't really matter. So it's a constant learning curve that we are getting better at, but we are obviously using your support to get better at it as well. And, the thing we need to, and the three of us were talking before about, doesn't matter what your tech is, you need to get the people behind it. You need to get the people on board. And, for us, it was basically trying to get our customer service agents to adapt to what we need them to be when we need them to be that. Because, we measure our KPIs within 15-minute increments. So it's really, really challenging to make sure that we are adaptable. And we are getting there, but we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Dan, I'm going to turn to you if it's okay. Again, if you could introduce yourself, tell us a bit about Computer Centre.
Yeah, thanks, Stu. Dan Heffern. I work at Computer Centre. For those of you not familiar with Computer Centre, they are a large global IT organisation providing both product and services to multiple customers worldwide, and equally as passionate about customer experience as DHL, I'd like to point out. And we provide services, as I say, worldwide. My role within Computer Centre, I lead our Group Service Desk business. I'm Group Service Desk Director. Just to give you some idea on scale, it's around 2,500 people that I have working in 11 countries worldwide. So prior to COVID, I lived in hotel rooms and airports for much of my life, and I've now been, like all of us, stuck in offices and bedrooms working. Prior to Computer Centre, I learnt my trade in financial services and IT, working for Santander Bank. For those of you at a certain age may remember the Abbey National High Street Building Society. I started there as a YTS, earning my £29.50 per week, and probably had more disposable income then than I do now. But kids have looked told to that. So that's a bit about me.
Yeah. Thank you. And you've just won an award at Computer Centre. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so recently, or 2 weeks ago, myself and, well, mainly my team, I'm just the front man really, was at the SDI Awards, so the Service Desk Institute, for those of you that are familiar with the SDI. 2 weeks ago, up in Birmingham, we received 2 awards. The first was a new award. It's called Service Resiliency, which focused really on how we handled the last 2 years and the pandemic. And primarily, it was around our use of technology, enabling our people to work from home as we all went into lockdown. And many heartwarming stories of, team leaders dropping off equipment to people's front doors. My operations manager in Malaysia at a market buying screens last minute to ship to people. And that was really how we then enabled the business to work. And the second part of our award for the same one really focused on probably what I'd call after the COVID honeymoon, after that 3 months of the world realising that the corporate world would continue, you then entered into a really different struggle around, someone else spoke about the health and well-being of people. How do you keep people engaged? How do you induct people into an organisation? And the second part, or the bulk of our award there, was really around what we did around our people. If I'm honest, that's the bit that I was most proud of. Our second award was our large Service Desk Enterprise Service Desk of the Year award, which was for our internal service desk, which delivered out of our Barcelona office. And that really was a story of how, again, we looked after our people, but this is where the technology aspect came in, where we've implemented a vast array of technology into our desk. Thank you, Sabio. That's really helped drive some of our user experience to our own internal people. So 2 awards we're very proud of.
Brilliant. I'm going to come back to that engaging your people bit in a second, because all 3 of you have mentioned that, and I'd like to maybe explore that in a bit more detail. But before I do that, can you just tell us a bit about your customers, and who are they and who do you engage with typically?
So we deal with many large global organisations across multiple industries, many household names, AstraZeneca in the pharmaceutical world, Michelin, Lloyds Banking Group, Royal Mail Group. We embark with many of these household brands in terms of our key customers. And in terms of what they want and what they look for from Computer Centre, it's more for less, right? That's what we all want. It's more for less, it's quicker, it's faster, it's more efficient, more effective. And we get driven that same way, in the same way that we ultimately drive our vendors. That's what they're looking for. One of the things that I've really noticed in the last probably 10 years around what our clients want, if you think back 10, 15 years ago when the concept of digital transformation really came about, as an IT service provider, people would approach us around, we want to go on a digital transformation, can you help us? Mm-hmm. I see a lot more now in the industry where organisations have their own strategies, normally driven by some form of investment in tooling or technology. And I'm finding more and more now we have to really flex what we do to be able to offer module-based solutions that can dovetail in to client strategies. And that's the general gist of the move I've seen in the last few years. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So let's come back to that point on engaging employees and some of the challenges around that. Gary, I'll go back to you again. How do you go about doing that in Zuto? And I guess you've got a lot of flexibility there in terms of they can be quite involved in the process of developing the tools they use.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the culture and the values of the business. So some of the things that underpin the way that we work, and these work across the entire business, and not just the engineering teams, but also from marketing through to the contact center. And actually, it's first and foremost, it comes as having a blame-free culture, and we want that blame-free culture to be experimental. So that's kind of then you're giving the teams the freedom to change the way that they're working. And you think back to kind of the foundations and where Agile started from, coming from those factories where Toyota was saying, look, we can manufacture a car better than anyone else. That came back to the employees being able to stop the entire production line to say, this isn't optimized, this isn't working. We can do the same, and we empower, saying even if it doesn't work, doesn't matter, we're not going to look back at this with an eye for blame. It's like you can stop what's happening in the contact center in your team because you've seen an improvement, and let's listen to that, and let's see, how does that form into one of our missions, and let's change that and improve it. It doesn't always need to be something that the development teams need to build. It could be a process, it could be a way of working. Just, hey, this is stupid, why are we doing this? Let's change that and do it a different way. And we feel like, that gives a lot of satisfaction knowing that you're working with these constraints, and these are the values of how we build our business.
I'm guessing that'd be maybe a bit more challenging in such a large organisation.
Everything's more challenging in a large organisation.
Yeah.
So you're limited what you do, but irrelevant of the challenges with KPIs and being a global company, people are just people, right? Mm-hmm. They just need that human interaction. You need to make them feel empowered. You need to make them feel important. Yeah. And there's lots and lots of things that we do at DHL, which I'm personally really proud of. One of the things that we always do is employee opinion surveys, which sounds really basic, but just ask the people how they feel about some key things that are important to the business and important to them as well. And actually, based on those results, you take action plans as well. So it doesn't matter what your job is, you will have an interaction with a board member at some point. We do roadshows, like I said, employee opinion surveys. And one thing that DHL does globally, and again, all elements of the group, is that we send people on a training course to make them feel immersed in our culture, that irrelevant of the job, they are vital to what we do. And we have 4 pillars, which I'm not going to bore you with all the 4 pillars, because I'm sure some of you aren't interested. But the first pillar of DHL is motivated people. That is the most important thing that we do as a business. And I think it's one of the key reasons for our success over 60 years. Yeah. So and it's just adapting that to the environment that we're in to constantly engage with our people, whether it's via tech or in person.
Yeah. Any comments on that, Dan?
A little bit to add. I just wanted to make the point, really, that personally I've been absolutely delighted with all the speakers this morning around their focus on people. I particularly I can't remember who it was who did the 3 A's, but I will be stealing that to take back internally. I think that was an excellent way to describe what is the challenge. And I just want to tell a very, very brief story about something that hit home for me. And I spoke earlier about the COVID challenge. And after we got over the euphoria of technology working at home and being able to operate, it then became about people and culture. And I was chatting to a friend of mine, doesn't work at Computer Centre, but he'd started a job in June 2020, so remotely, and he left the organisation in October last year, so he'd worked there for 15, 16 months. And just over passing, I said, what was that company like to work for? what was the culture like? And he said, I don't know. And it really struck a chord with me. And now I think what I'm trying to do, certainly within Computer Centre, I don't have all the answers yet. How do you embed that culture? You know, the narrative around COVID changed so quickly from we'll get back to normal to we'll get back to a new normal. A new normal, we've all spoke about it this morning, talks about hybrid working, home working, collaboration tools, and the tech is the easy bit, right? How do you drive that culture? How do you drive that collaboration? And that's personally where my focus is at the moment. I think it's a massive challenge for the corporate world.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. What else, you know, has changed for you guys as a result of COVID, the pandemic, and the new normal?
Yeah, it's different with, I think it comes down to the processes and ways of working. So we looked at a lot of the way that we structure and run the teams, and actually that they're really office-centric. And we've been looking to try and break those down. So you're thinking about a contact center agent that had all of that support network, that team around them, and that energy. And we haven't cracked this yet, but it's, well, now you're at home. We've still got the office. It's hybrid working. You can come in if you want, but for a lot of reasons, working remote works for people. But how do we still get we think you bring in the customers into your house, and you have a really challenging conversation. Hopefully they're all great and you're talking about getting into this new car and it's going to be amazing. But sometimes it might be a complaint, or it might be a difficult conversation. Maybe it's a vulnerable customer you're having a conversation with, and you don't have that immediate support network next to you. So yeah, thinking about the mental health of agents and staff are all Zootonites. Changing those processes, ways of working. We haven't fully cracked it yet, but that's one of the big differences we're seeing.
Yeah. Jen, any other?
What was the question again, Stuart?
It was about as we come into the new normal. You know, what's changed for you as a result of the pandemic?
I think the challenge is getting people back in the office.
Yeah.
Because they love sitting in their dressing gown. You know, they love taking the dogs out for walks, and they're like, I can't do it in the office. And it's really just encouraging them and actually having empathy with the anxiety that they might be feeling with the change that they're working, and actually being supportive, but at the same time really encouraging them to come back in. So we're trying lots of new ways just to make it exciting to come into the office. You know, just basic stuff like doing some office improvements and, you know, just making sure that they feel supported, that we can hopefully work with how they want to work. And that balance is right. So, you know, we were fully traditional office working prior to 2 years. So we're now come back into more of a 50-50 model. But we're aware that actually there's still a huge demand for people who don't want to come in, but we really want to encourage them to come in.
We, sorry to jump in, Stu, but
Go for it.
if you've got a camera in that green room through there, if you can listen to the three of us in our conversation before we came on this debate, it was absolutely brilliant. I think I probably learned more in that 20 minutes than I have in a while around that challenge. And I think we all violently agreed, create the why. Create the why. You know, that is the key in terms of getting some form of collaboration and hybrid working. But an interesting debate if you've got a camera.
We've probably got time for one question from the audience, so if we could grab a mic down the front here, I've got a question if that's okay. Sorry, next one.
Have you seen productivity increase over bringing people back into the workplace?
Good question.
I'm happy to start. I've got an interesting story on that. I'll make it quick. So the big theory, obviously, is if you have people at home, then they won't be as productive, quality won't be as good, training will be harder, and I absolutely subscribe to that pre-COVID. I did a controlled study of around 30 desk analysts in our Barcelona office, and I picked Barcelona delivery, given what's outside the office, to see what we could do. And our productivity and quality scores and general performance homeworking was a lot better. And I'll sum it up with one bit of feedback that I got from one of the analysts firsthand, who said to me, Dan, I know if I don't perform to the right level, you'll have me back in the office and I want to stay at home.
Good comment,
Productivity is a real key thing for us at the moment at DHL. And actually, we don't really know the answer, and I think it's based on an individual basis of how they work best. But I think we believe that people are more productive in the office.
Right.
we believe, but again, we're still early days of bringing people back.
Yeah.
But I'm a true believer that you should offer a working environment where what works best for that individual. So I don't think you should go, you're all more productive in the office, therefore you should all come back. So there's still a question mark on it, and I think we really need to look at data and really analyse so that we don't just make decisions based on incorrect information.
Yeah. Gary?
Yeah, I think that's key. It's the productivity, I guess, not just being a couple of immediate KPIs that you can see swinging as to, we're answering more calls, we're speaking more on web chat. It's the customer outcomes that happen at the end of it. And you were mentioning earlier that you have to pick up the phone in 10 seconds. Like, I wonder if a customer's expecting a phone to be answered in 10 seconds, or they'd be happy with 30 and you'd still get a really great score. So it's that productivity's hard. And you also want to think about the onboarding and the training of the agents. And if you're pulling people back in, then is productivity going to drop because morale's not that great, and actually just giving people the freedom and the tooling. And I guess that's why we're so interested in the process and making sure that the tooling matches the process, so we can be as productive wherever we are and we get the same consistent experience.
Brilliant. Unfortunately, I think we're out of time. But it's a huge round of applause to our 3 guests here. Really fascinating conversation. Thanks very much, guys, for joining.